I thought like you were gonna absolutely destroy me, but we don't really even disagree that much.
Well, I mean, I probably like as far as the men and the woman thing. Yeah, I could probably destroy you on that one. That's like that branch of
Maybe
philosophy. I'm pretty well researched in that
we
branch
may.
of philosophy.
Huh. I don't know if I want to try you on that one.
I mean, we can go for it, dude. I think it'd make an interesting discussion.
All right, sure. Okay, so what's your stance?
I don't think that we need to draw the lines between men and women. Men and women are something that we create as a society. There's no biological way to specifically predict a man and a woman. Being a biologically a man and a woman is not a thing.
Well, Bunk, would you agree that you can draw an equivalency here with like saying that you don't think we should draw a line between a black person and a white person?
Yeah, I believe that race is a social construct as well. Yes.
Right. So would you also draw an equivalency with like a dog and a human?
A dog and a human. Um,
Right. Like as far as
yes,
like
I would, but here's the thing. Whenever we make those distinctions, we make those distinctions because they serve some use to society. Like we can make sure like
so.
we can make laws surrounding dogs, surrounding humans that are different. We can make sure we buy a dog specifically. Like we give these labels to certain things because they serve some kind of purpose in our lives, right? For example, we label like a certain construction of wood, a chair, because we want to make sure we have enough in our household to seat everybody, right? Like obviously that's something we made up. We made up the word chair. We made that distinction of what is a chair. But it serves some sort of purpose to
So
us. I
why
don't think
doesn't it serve a purpose to us? Seen as gender and stuff could actually serve a purpose from a biological stance, and not only from a biological stance, but also a stance from personality and individualism.
Okay, well, you'd have to demonstrate for me what benefit that actually has. You can't just say it has a benefit
Well,
and
I
like
would
leave it at
say,
that.
anecdotally, and of course it's anecdotes, but
Hmm.
from myself, I would prefer to just be a male than just be like literally nothing. You know?
No, you can identify with a male. I'm just saying the actual like the homeostatic property cluster of man and woman doesn't really serve a purpose within society today. I think that whenever we're weighing these two options, right, in between
Well, I mean, it
expanding these
used to,
categories,
in the
well,
sense that there was gender roles, like a woman would cook and men
yeah,
would
but was
hunt
that
and
yeah, but
work.
now that we're past that, like it's not necessary. Like obviously you could argue, well, yeah, at some point these might have served a purpose, and like maybe they
I'm
did.
pretty
I'm not
sure that
sure.
it actually helps with marriage. I don't know. I heard that from my dad, so I don't know if that's the best
Marriage?
evidence.
How so? We have gay
Well, because
marriage.
women aren't going to be as involved with their male partners, and therefore they aren't going to argue as much because they're away from them. They don't have to do the same things. They don't have to have disagreements on jobs and stuff like that. They do. They serve different functions in the family.
Between men and women. Well, then we'd have to get into the entire concept of what whether family structures is like a good thing or not. But
Well, I mean,
I'd say
if it
these
would
roles
improve marriage,
these roles are so incredibly malleable though. Like there are men who fulfill these roles as well. Like these aren't
right?
specifically made for men and women. So I'd have to ask again, what exact like purpose does this serve? Because again, like you can demonstrate repeatedly that men can fulfill those roles too. So like, what purpose does it have to only label one person under those societal
I
expectations?
would say most of this boils down to like two things: hormones in the brain, because you're a male, so you have more testosterone in your brain, obviously, and secondly, societal pressure to fulfill your roles. But the second one's not as much because, like in the John Money case, he kind of like disproved himself there.
Okay, so when we talk about um, what do you got? Hormones in the brain, you said that's what
Well, yeah,
determines a
hormones in
man
the
and a
brain. So
woman.
that
Okay,
would cause
so
brain differences such as that you said earlier.
okay,
I
well,
think.
do you realize that people have dramatically different like hormone levels? Like this isn't like a standard that we see. Like there's not like really a standard
Right, but
hormone
men have
level.
on average more testosterone than
Yeah, but some
women.
women have more testosterone than men, so I'd have to ask you, well, what about are they men now? Like,
Well, I'm not basing the criteria on
well, you literally
testosterone.
just said you were though.
I'm just saying that because men typically have more testosterone and it goes to their brain, said testosterone would make them want to act more manly. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that that meets the criteria for what makes them a male. It's not my
Okay,
argument.
okay. So what's the point of these distinctions between a man and a woman that I have to ask again? Because
Well, it
you just
would
outlined
simply
completely
because
different.
I don't know. I guess all I could say is Because I like it. I don't know.
Because I like it. But like, would you say generally as a society, like from again like a utilitarian perspective, we want to minimize suffering within the world? Would that be a good thing?
Um, well, I do know of a philosopher named William Lane Craig that was just like who argued with Sam Harris, and William Lane Craig is a Christian, by the way, and he argued about the same issue, and he said, well, you're defining good in a different way. If you were to say like chess is, it's a good move to like not get your king in a checkmate. That's not an. It's objectively good in the sense that uh, you don't want to lose the game, right? But it's not objectively or morally apprehensible to lose the game. So you're defining good in a different way. Who's to say that good correlates with the optimization of pleasure as far as objective morality goes?
Well, there is no such thing as objective morality. Is how I would
Well, I
argue
would
against
argue
that.
from a point of like, if there's a God or not, there is such thing as objective morality. Because it said
How so?
objective moralities. Well, God, of course, would have set the law, and that law would be objective because he is
No,
God.
it wouldn't.
It
God is
would
by
be.
definition a subject. Like I've been over this with you. Like
No, but it
no,
would
no.
be
When we
objective.
when we look up the definition of a god, it actually says an entity, like a thing. All right. So, for example, I'm just gonna Google the definition of a god right now. Give me a quick second.
Doing Webster's dictionary again.
Yeah, a god is
Do
the creator, the
Webster
ruler of the
dictionary.
universe, of all moral authority, a supreme being. A being would be a subject under any definition. So yes, it would be a subjective morality. Like just because he's the authority of everything, just because he wrote that law, okay, where does that law come from? Would it have to come from this God's subjective morality?
But it wouldn't be subjective in the sense
No,
that he said the law.
it would be. Well, no,
How?
because where do you source these laws from?
Well, the punishment that would
No, where do you
inspire
source?
if we were to not follow them.
Where do you source these from? Like, where do we get these laws? Like,
What do you mean? Like,
how
where
are they
did
put in
God get these
place?
laws?
Yeah, where did God get these laws?
I don't know, bro. I'm not God.
From his subjective morality.
Would that have been from his subjective morality?
Yes, it would have to have been from his subjective morality.
But it wouldn't be subjective because he made it, though.
Well, yeah, but we'll say
It
that
would have
my
been
morality,
subjective in his
my
sense.
morality could be objective as well then
Well,
because I made it.
objective as in provable. If God made it, we could prove that it's wrong.
No, because it doesn't inherently make it wrong. Just because an authority says something doesn't inherently make it right.
That is true. Yes, that's true.
So, like, when we're
I don't know
talking about
about that.
abstract concepts like this, we can't exactly prove, for example, something is like morally correct or just. I'm just saying that typically as a society, we tend to think that certain things are good and certain things are bad. I'd say typically, from my perspective, that whenever less humans suffer, it's a good thing. I'd say that's typically a good thing. We normally want to strive for
Okay,
that.
well, what basis are you saying it's a good thing? That's what I'm
Because
getting
generally,
at.
as a society, people don't like to suffer. I don't think that we should be aiming.
Well, why does that mean that it's a good moral thing?
Why does it mean that's a good moral thing? Because I think, again, this is my subjective morality, that
Right, so
people shouldn't
it's a
suffer.
subjective
Yeah,
sin.
of course it's subjective. Every single thing about morality is subjective. I've already covered this.
Dude, I really feel like if there was a God, there would be objective morality.
No, but
and I don't know how to prove it.
Yeah, but it'd just be like the God's subjective take on what morality would be, though. Like, again, like this God has to get.
So Bunk, it would be subjective to him, but it would be objective to us because he would be a moral authority in the definition.
No, but like again, because authority says something doesn't inherently mean it's proven. Like again, that would literally be like an appeal to authority. If someone asks you, okay, prove that this is right. Well, an authority figure said it. Well, that's not prove it. That doesn't prove anything.
But if it's God, I feel like that'd be different in some way, but I don't know.
But like, how so though? Because when we're talking about whether something's subjective or not, they cannot be subjective to one person, objective to another. Like something is either inherently objectively provable or it's not objectively provable. You can't say, okay, well, one person can prove it, and then the person who knows everything about everything, they can't prove it for some reason though. Like that doesn't seem to follow logically.
Hmm. I mean, man, this discussion is all over the place, but I kind of like it. Um, hmm. I guess. Huh. Shit. I mean, I can't really say anything else besides what I've already said.
Hmm. So I guess I'll expand on the point. Would you say generally as a society we try and make sure that people suffer the least? Do you think that's like a general thing that we go with society? Like that's our goal normally to make people suffer the
Um,
least?
yeah, I mean, it depends on who you're asking, but I'd say if you ask most people, that would be the answer
No,
would
but
be
like
yes.
we
Generally,
we
yes.
put things in place to try and like optimize people's lives. We try and like make sure that the poor are cared for, you know, stuff like that. We typically like as a society, we typically do these types of things. Um, so you'd say, you know, most people would probably be,
Right,
would
but
probably say
Bun,
that's the goal
because
of a
you're arguing
society.
this, if I kept on asking you why, it would all boil down to an appeal to emotional fallacy. Would you
I'm
agree?
not. I'm not saying I'm not appealing to emotion. I'm just saying this is like how again like this is just generally how society feels about things. Like
Well, this is an argument of universality, not objective. Well, we've already
well,
been over
again, we've already
subjective.
been over this. Can't be objective. Literally, no morality can be objective.
Okay, if I could prove to you that if God had objective morality, would that make any difference?
I mean, depends if you knew this God's objective morality. Like, what would this God's objective morality be? What would an unbiased God want? If an unbiased God wanted everybody to suffer, like, would you say it's best if everybody suffers then?
Well, I mean, I'd say, yeah. I mean, if it's an unbiased God, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
because he would be God, there would be no objective basis to which you could object to such a thing.
Will there be
So I
no
can see where you're
objective
coming from.
basis to what a God could say either? Like this again, this is all subjective when we look at it. I'd say typically we don't look at things through that prism of well, I mean, God's God, so like he's right. Like we don't typically look through that like in any other situation. Like for example, I could be like I could create my like let's say I could create my own little world, or I could like I don't know create a human being. It doesn't mean it
But
doesn't
can you
give
repeat
me
that?
that doesn't give me moral authority to do whatever the fuck I want to. It doesn't give me moral authority to say how that being should live its existence out. Um, we don't typically apply the standard to anything else. So yeah, that's what I'd say about that.
Well, you're comparing a human to a human controlling it. Well, you're comparing a human controlling another human. It would be different
Why?
because it's a literal god.
Okay, but like why would that be different?
Why?
Why?
Um, Simply put, I mean, God would be a lot smarter and he would know what's best. I mean, there's really no other argument I could really say besides an appeal to authority.
Yeah, so let's like you already admit like that's a logically fallacious argument. So when we talk about like things like that, I'd say for example, let's say I created an ant. That doesn't mean I have objective authority over what that ant can and cannot think. Like I don't have objective
Well,
authority over
not
that
think,
ant's
but do.
morals. I wouldn't say I'd have objective authority over what it could do either.
Hmm.
Like why
You're
would I
making
have
really good points. It's really hard for me to argue against this
yeah.
because I've never thought of. I mean, I had an argument with B Dank about how God didn't make like about religion yesterday, and he told me that God can't make morally objective claims, just like you are. And that was the first time I've ever heard that.
Mm, I don't how did Beatank argue his point?
Um, well, we basically both agreed that you can't really get anything out of science as far as like the afterlife goes, or as far as like any rational like thought would go. And basically, I argued with him that like because of this, the only rational decision would be to follow God because if God didn't exist, from the atheistic worldview, there would be no consequence. But if he did exist, there would be reward.
Oh,
So,
okay. So I know I know what argument you're making. What do
and
you call it?
I can quote
No, no.
C.S. Lewis here. So
What's this argument called?
it's I was actually talking to someone else about it as well. It's like some French guy's argument. I didn't even know what it was until I didn't even know what it was called. I just kind of made it up myself,
I
or I just
forgot
heard it from someone.
I forgot what it's called. Like that's an
It's a
actual
French guy's argument. I can tell you. I'm trying to find it.
Pascal's wager.
Yeah, that's it.
So
Pascal's
what you're
wager.
making is the argument of Pascal's wager, and I've argued against this many times. I'm going to argue against it again. So the first like logical fallacy that this argument commits is that it makes a false dilemma. All right, there's a dilemma. Oh, either you believe in God or you don't. First of all, these aren't the only two options. You can be theistic and not religiously affiliated. We can say that there's another God that we don't know about. And secondly, it's an argument based off of fear and fear alone. What sounds the scariest, right? So I could say, let's say like there's a God, and that God exists, and let's say he's really fed up with all the other gods, right? He really doesn't like that other people follow other gods, and the fact that they're following other gods angers him. And the only people who are gonna get to this paradise, right, are atheists. Well, I could make the exact same thing, and then you like get the double hell. Let's say you get to the double paradise or double hell, right? Now that's technically a better wager, but like we don't have any rational moral reason why we believe this. So it's kind of fundamentally based on how believable this God figure is. We shouldn't make decisions on what we believe based on what sounds the scariest.
Well, I'm not arguing from a point of view of like fear. I'm arguing from a point of view of rationality. As
Yeah,
William,
but
no,
like
I
again,
can.
I can
Wait,
make
give me
the
a second. Give me a second. Do you know who William Lane Craig is?
I've heard the name. Yeah, didn't you say
He
he was like
argued with like
yeah.
Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris, and he beat them both. And he said that there's 5 things science can't prove. Okay, that we all rationally accept. Do you want to hear it?
Sure.
So, logical and mathematical truths. Science presupposes mathematical and logical truths. So, to try and prove them by science would be arguing in a circle. Metaphysical truths, such as there are other minds other than my own, and the external world is real, and that the past was not created 5 minutes ago with an illusion of age, or rational beliefs that cannot be
Ooh,
science.
that's a really bad argument. Okay, so again, we can
How?
go
No,
back
no,
to
wait. I'm not done.
okay.
And then science itself. Science itself cannot be justified by the science method. Science is permeated by improvable assumptions. For example, in the theory of relativity, the speed of light is assumed, something that we cannot prove. We have to assume such a thing to hold to the theory. In addition to this, science cannot prove itself, much like mathematics and logic, as it would be a circular form of logic.
Oh, I'm gonna have a doozy with this one. So, Turns, how can
Okay,
you
let me
prove?
see.
How can you trust your senses? How can you trust that you can see things?
But you can't.
Exactly. This is an unjustified presupposition. Correct.
Right, you can't trust any of it.
Okay. So, would you say that any conclusion therein that you base off of that would be inherently unjustified?
Objectively, yes.
I'd say no, because we can make certain calls and we can predict certain things that will happen, and they can happen. So basically, at the fundamentals of philosophy, we all have
How do you know they really happened?
unjustified. Well, again, this is an unjustified presupposition.
Well, how do you know they really happened if you're basing it upon something that cannot objectively prove to you that it happened, and you're only telling yourself that it happened, which would be a subjective sense, not an objective fact, not provable.
Well, I mean, other people can observe it happening as well, but like again,
But it still doesn't
we
prove
can
it.
make the statements that hey, we can make rational. Well, I think I could call back to like I think therefore I am. We can make rational arguments. We can argue about things. The mere fact that we can think about
Right,
these
but
types of things will
I'm
prove
saying
that
that
at
science
least
can't
there's a
prove those
mind.
rational arguments.
No,
This is
but
not a
also,
philosophical argument. This is an
okay,
argument from science.
yeah, okay, that's fine. But then we can also apply the exact same thing to religion. So how do you know a God exists? How do you know that this is the actual holy text of your God? Well, I don't know that it exists. I don't know anything. So you can make this argument, but that literally invalidates every single thing that we've ever thought about that's ever happened. It's literally like a deadline of reasoning. And again, you can call back to Occam's razor that generally we take the explanation for things that has the least amount of assumptions in it. We can call it back to that. What now?
Yeah, I've heard of that. The simplest solution is oftentimes the correct one.
Yes. So whenever we're faced with a deadline of reasoning, I mean, sure, you can take that deadline of reasoning, but that means that none of your arguments are going to be valid either. And in fact, the argument is in itself is self-defeating because you're making that
Yeah, I
argument
know.
based on your own irrational presuppositions.
It may be self-defeating, but it's still correct. Like I'm still holding to it that it's probably correct that well, firstly, you can't prove that any of this is real. You can't prove that it's not just some matrix or anything like that. And secondly, you can't prove that um, out of everything, like or like you or me are not the only conscious beings in existence. You're not just talking to a robot right now, or I'm
Yeah.
not just talking to a robot right now.
Mm-hmm.
Can't prove any of that. So
Yeah,
who's to say that it's not?
to say that
It's
it's
just a
not, but
rational thing that we believe.
well, obviously because it's a deadline of reasoning. Again, like you could say the exact same thing about your own argument. The fact that you're making that argument right now means that there must be at least some ability for us to rationally communicate and actually have rational thoughts. If we think that because an argument is based off of our own unjustified presuppositions, then absolutely no argument can be made, and therefore the argument itself is invalidated.
Wait, can you say that one more time?
Because by the very nature of making that argument, you are making the presupposition that you can actually think that we can make these arguments happen. If you're gonna say that that everything else is unjustified because it's built off of unjustified presuppositions, then your own argument is built off of unjustified presuppositions, and it'd be special pleading to not apply the exact same logic to your own argument.
So if I applied the same exact logic to my own argument, where would I be?
You'd be wrong. It wouldn't
Well, how would
be
I be
anywhere.
wrong if I'm applying it to everything?
Everything would be wrong. There would be nothing to be.
Well, still, that doesn't disprove anything. Does
It.
that disprove anything?
I mean, if we apply the standard to everything, then nothing exists, and it's just again, it's a deadline of reasoning. It doesn't go anywhere.
Maybe.
And
But
by
I'm
that,
just applying it to science and science alone.
yeah, but then that would be special pleading. You'd be saying, "Oh yeah,
What is
this applies to science, but it doesn't apply in my argument." Well, why doesn't it apply to your argument? Why not? We'd have to ask that question, and then that's not a question we could really answer.
I don't know what to think about that.
So like, if we apply this only to science, it's just like it's a logically fallacious thing to do only to one aspect of life. We'd have to apply this to every single thing, and when you apply it to every single thing, nothing actually exists, and we can't even be having this conversation at this very moment. Like nothing, no argument could be made. It's the argument itself is self-defeating. By making the argument itself, you are disproving it.
Dude, did you just come up with this like on the fly?
Yeah.
Because William Lane Craig argued these 5 things, and then like these 2 philosophers were just like stunned by it, and they had nothing to say.
I'm a big brain boy, dude. That's all I have to say on that. But yeah, no, it's just, I don't know, a lot of philosophy discussion.
God damn, bro. I didn't think you'd actually have a response to that. Well, shit. Okay, then why do you believe in atheism as opposed to religion?
Because I haven't seen a convincing argument for religion, and whenever we look at religion as a whole and apply the fact that, hey, whenever we don't know something, we don't assume that something extraordinary exists. For example, it's very uncommon for me to encounter a god on the daily. Not something that typically happens to me. I don't typically walk outside my house and see a deity, and I've never seen a convincing argument as to why there is a deity controlling us. Also, I think that every single religion that tries to understand said deity is severely flawed in their own texts, and there are multiple different contradictions in them. So whenever we're taking a look at theism versus atheism, I'm going to go with the normal assumption that there isn't something there rather than there is. I also think that it is typically, whenever we look at arguments for atheism versus theism, I find the arguments for atheism to be a little bit more convincing. But generally speaking, if I can't find an argument for why something exists, I'll assume it doesn't.
Okay. I see. Man, the only thing I got to say after that is You're unbeatable, bro. I don't know what to do.
Dude, I don't know, dude. I just have a really epic gaming chair.
And I thought I was good at arguing. Ego destroyed.
But yeah, I mean, if that's all we have to say here,